In the mid-90s, one photograph on a billboard caused traffic jams, headlines, and endless debates.
She's very pretty and sexy.
It wasn't a movie star or a political figure. It was a Czech model staring back with a two-word message: "Hello, boys." The Wonderbra ad featuring Eva Herzigova became one of the most controversial and recognizable campaigns in fashion history. But that ad is just the headline. Behind it is the story of a woman who built a career that stretched far beyond that one image. Through grief, reinvention, and a perspective on fame that kept her grounded while the world watched. And that's what makes her story worth telling. Eva Herzigova was born in Litvinov, a small industrial town in what was then Czechoslovakia, in 1973. Her childhood wasn't glamorous. It was a working-class environment shaped by the realities of living under a communist system. Her father worked as an electrician, and her mother was a secretary. Life in that part of Europe at the time was structured, predictable, and far removed from the world of international fashion magazines. Like many teenagers, Eva didn't imagine herself on the covers of Vogue. She was athletic and active, spending her early years more focused on school and sports than on style or modeling. But her striking height and features meant she stood out even in her hometown. In 1989, everything changed when a modeling competition came to Prague. She entered almost on a whim, encouraged by friends and family. Winning that contest gave her an invitation to Paris, a door to a completely different world. It's important to remember the timing. This was right as the Iron Curtain was falling. Opportunities that had been closed off to young women from Eastern Europe were suddenly opening. For Eva, the chance to leave Czechoslovakia and step into Paris fashion circles was more than just a career move. It was a leap from one world into another. That contrast between her modest upbringing and the runway lights of Paris would shape how she carried herself throughout her career. When Eva arrived in Paris after winning the modeling contest, she was only a teenager and completely new to the fashion world. Paris in the early 1990s was the center of global fashion, full of established supermodels, elite agencies, and fierce competition. For someone coming from a small Czech town, it was overwhelming. She didn't speak French at the time, and the industry wasn't known for being patient with newcomers. But Eva had something that stood out immediately: presence. She was tall, confident in her posture, and had the kind of look that casting directors remembered. She signed with Madison Models, a Paris agency that had a track record of launching new faces. Slowly, she began booking catalog work and smaller shows. It wasn't instant success, but it was steady enough to keep her in the city and learning the ropes of the industry. By the early 1990s, European fashion was shifting. Designers were looking for models who could embody more than elegance. They wanted charisma, someone who could grab attention even in a simple advertisement. Eva's features and energy fit that moment perfectly. Within a couple of years, she started landing higher-profile campaigns. She was no longer just a contest winner from Czechoslovakia. She was becoming a recognizable figure in the European modeling scene. These early Paris years weren't glamorous in the way people often imagine. It was long hours of castings, rejection, and competing with hundreds of other young women for the same jobs. But for Eva, the persistence paid off, and by the time she turned 20, she was already on the radar of some of the biggest fashion brands in the world. In 1994, Eva Herzigova's career took a turn that no one could have predicted. She became the face of the Wonderbra campaign, known by two simple words: "Hello, boys." The advertisement was plastered across billboards in the UK and other parts of Europe, showing Eva looking directly at the camera in a black Wonderbra with a playful, confident expression. It wasn't subtle, and that was exactly the point. The campaign created headlines immediately. Drivers in London were reportedly distracted by the billboards, causing traffic jams. Newspapers debated whether it was empowering, cheeky, or too provocative. Feminist groups had mixed reactions, with some calling it objectification, while others argued it showed a woman confidently in control of her own image. For Eva, it was both career-defining and controversial. She became a household name overnight. People who had never followed fashion suddenly knew who she was. The ad was parodied on TV shows, discussed in Parliament, and even voted one of the most iconic outdoor advertisements of the 20th century in the UK. What's interesting is that Eva herself didn't shy away from the attention. She leaned into the idea that the campaign was bold and fun, saying it represented confidence rather than shame. That confidence made her stand out from other models of the time who often stayed quiet about controversy. The Wonderbra moment wasn't just an ad, it was a cultural flashpoint. It launched Eva from a rising model in Paris into an international star, and for years afterward, she was instantly associated with those two words, "Hello Boys." Once the Hello Boys ad made Eva Herzigova a household name, she faced a new challenge: what to do next. The campaign had given her instant recognition, but it also carried the risk of being typecast as only the Wonderbra model. Fashion is an industry that moves quickly, and it doesn't always reward people who become symbols of a single moment. Eva used the momentum to push further into high fashion. She began working with houses like Dior, Yves Saint Laurent, and Chanel, showing that she could be more than a single campaign face. She became a regular in magazines like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, cementing herself as part of the 1990s supermodel generation, though with a distinctly European flair compared to the American icons of the era. The attention from Wonderbra also opened doors outside of runway and print. She started getting offers for television appearances and commercials beyond lingerie. While some opportunities leaned into the sex symbol image, Eva worked strategically to balance them with jobs that showcased her as versatile, elegant, and adaptable to different aesthetics. Still, the shadow of "Hello Boys" followed her. In interviews, journalists frequently circled back to the campaign, sometimes overlooking her wider portfolio. Eva handled it with patience, often reframing the conversation by talking about her work ethic, preparation, and ambitions beyond one famous photograph. This balancing act, embracing the fame from Wonderbra while carefully steering her career in new directions, helped her avoid the fate of being a one-hit figure. Instead, she built a lasting presence in the fashion world during a time when the competition among models was as fierce as ever. By the late 1990s, Eva Herzigova had built her reputation in fashion, but she wanted to prove she could do more than walk a runway or pose for a magazine cover. Acting became her next frontier. She started appearing in European films, which offered her a platform to explore a different kind of performance, one not limited to a single image or a still frame. Her early roles weren't blockbuster hits, but they showed a willingness to take risks. She appeared in projects like Just for the Time Being and later European productions that allowed her to work in both English and her native Czech. These films rarely reached mainstream American audiences, but they built her credibility as someone serious about the craft, rather than treating acting as a side gig. The transition wasn't simple. Models crossing into acting often face skepticism, with critics assuming they rely on their looks rather than talent. Eva countered this by choosing roles that let her stretch, characters with vulnerability, humor, or intensity that contrasted with her glamorous fashion persona. In interviews, she explained that film gave her something modeling couldn't: the ability to inhabit a character for more than a single moment. Whereas a campaign was about selling an image, acting required emotional depth and storytelling. That difference appealed to her, especially after years of being defined by the "Hello Boys" billboard. Her move into film didn't make her a Hollywood superstar, but it added another layer to her career. For Eva, it was less about replacing modeling and more about expanding her creative expression, proving that she could step beyond the title of supermodel. Behind the public image of glamour, Eva's personal life carried weight most fans never saw. During her adolescence, she lost her father, a moment that left a lasting mark on her. In later interviews, she's spoken about the grief and how it shaped her perspective on life. Growing up in Czechoslovakia, family ties were close, and his passing meant she entered adulthood with a sense of loss that lingered long after her career took off. For someone so often portrayed as confident and untouchable in campaigns, the reality was more complicated. That early heartbreak became part of her foundation, something that quietly influenced how she approached relationships, motherhood, and even her work. Friends and colleagues have mentioned how grounded she remained, despite global fame, and Eva herself has said that personal pain gave her a sharper understanding of resilience. Grief doesn't disappear, and in Eva's case, it became a kind of shadow she carried through the high points of her career. While the world saw billboards, magazine covers, and movie premieres, she carried it all with the memory of that early loss. It added dimension to her story, reminding people that even icons deal with struggles beyond the spotlight. For her, speaking openly about her father's death wasn't about drawing sympathy, it was about honesty. She never hid from the fact that personal challenges shaped her, even in a career built on image. That willingness to share made her relatable in ways her advertising fame never could. As Eva's modeling career matured, she began lending her image and voice to causes that mattered to her. One of the most visible was breast cancer awareness. She took part in campaigns aimed at encouraging early detection and fundraising, appearing in initiatives that put health front and center. For someone who had built a career on visual impact, it was a powerful pivot. Her face became tied to a message far beyond fashion. These projects weren't fleeting endorsements. Eva appeared in photo campaigns, spoke at events, and supported organizations that connected directly with women who faced difficult diagnoses. She understood the power of a familiar image on a poster or magazine spread, and how that recognition could draw attention to something urgent. Observers noted how naturally she handled this transition. The same charisma that once sold lingerie and perfume now amplified messages of prevention and care. Her involvement didn't erase the provocative Wonderbra legacy, but it added depth to how the public saw her. She was no longer only the model from the billboard. She was also someone willing to use her reach for causes that carried real weight. For Eva, advocacy wasn't about reinventing herself. It was a continuation of what had always been there, a mix of confidence, empathy, and an understanding of how visibility can be used responsibly. In an industry often criticized for superficiality, she showed that influence could be redirected toward awareness and impact. By the early 2000s, Eva Herzigova had already secured her place in fashion history. But she wasn't finished exploring what a career in the spotlight could mean. Acting became the next step. She took roles in European films and television, adding another layer to a professional path that had already stretched from runways to advocacy work. Her appearances weren't blockbuster Hollywood productions, but thoughtful projects in Italy, France, and her native Czech Republic. She often played characters that drew on her elegance and charisma, but there was more to it than typecasting. She embraced scripts that gave her a chance to explore storytelling in a new way, and directors spoke of her dedication to learning the craft. Audiences who only knew her from the Wonderbra campaign or glossy magazines sometimes expressed surprise at her presence on screen. Yet for Eva, the move into acting wasn't about chasing fame all over again. It was about expression, and about proving to herself that her career didn't need to be limited to a single lane. The crossover also broadened her fan base. Fashion followers saw her in a different context, while European film audiences discovered a model who could carry scenes with presence rather than just appearance. It wasn't a complete reinvention, but it was a reminder of her adaptability, a quality that had defined her since she was first scouted as a teenager. As her career matured, Eva Herzigova began using her voice in new ways. Modeling and acting gave her visibility, but writing gave her perspective. She started contributing editorials and essays, reflecting on beauty standards, the evolution of fashion, and the lessons she carried from decades in front of cameras. In these pieces, Eva didn't shy away from honesty. She discussed the pressures of body image, the fleeting nature of trends, and the importance of finding identity beyond public approval. Her tone often blended sophistication with warmth, coming across less like a celebrity giving statements and more like someone sharing experiences with friends. She also drew from personal chapters, losing her father at a young age, navigating grief while chasing a career, and later, balancing motherhood with the unpredictability of the fashion world. Those reflections connected with readers because they showed vulnerability alongside success. This shift into writing and commentary didn't feel like an exit from fashion, but rather a continuation of it. Where earlier in her career her image spoke for her, now her words carried equal weight. By stepping back and analyzing the culture she had once helped define, Eva became not just a face of fashion history, but a thoughtful commentator on its future. Today, Eva Herzigova stands as one of the rare models whose career can't be pinned to a single chapter. The Hello Boys campaign may have launched her into international headlines, but her story stretches far beyond a single billboard. She became a fixture of the 1990s fashion, transitioned into acting, stood on some of the biggest stages in Europe, and later used her platform for advocacy and reflection. Her legacy is shaped by contrasts, glamour on runways balanced with candid discussions about loss and personal growth. She showed how a woman who once symbolized bold sensuality could evolve into a voice for awareness and authenticity. Even decades later, her Wonderbra campaign is studied in advertising courses, while her editorials and charity work continue to resonate with audiences who grew up watching her career unfold. What keeps her story compelling is its humanity. Fame brought recognition, but it also brought challenges, and Eva never pretended otherwise. She used her experiences to carve out a career that feels full, layered, and lasting. Whether remembered for the billboard that stopped traffic, her advocacy for breast cancer awareness, or her ability to reinvent herself, Eva Herzigova remains an enduring figure in the conversation about beauty, culture, and resilience. And if you've enjoyed hearing her story, you'll probably want to stick around for the next one we've lined up. Because the truth is, every fashion icon has a moment that defines them, and a side that gets overlooked. Hit that next video, and let's keep going.